And let's see here. I'm in a totally different room this time. I usually try to be at my desk, but there is so much noise going on outside my house. Hello, everybody coming in. Okay, so let's see here. Cheryl or Jane, you're my first two that I saw here. Can you guys tell me that we're good on audio and that you can see us and everything is in working order on tech? And then we're going to get started. Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate that. We're going to give everybody time to come on in. And hi, Mom. My mom's on. Mom always joins. My mom's
Mom.
Yay, Mom. She's heard so much about you, Dr. Allen. I'm telling you, she's, I'm not sure if she's ever even joined one of our webinars before, but she knows who you are. Hi, Bobby. Hi, everybody. Okay, so while we're getting, while everybody's coming into the room and right before I do a proper introduction, what I'd like to hear from you in the chat today is if you're a health coach or if you're just a person that is new to the Wednesday wellness webinars, just let us know. Give us a little bit of information about yourself, where you live, all that good stuff. And yes, it's me, Mom. Yes, I know. And then we'll get started. And let me just say this, you guys, as always, for those of you who know Dr. Allen, you know me, he's one of my literally top 3 people to bring to you guys for many, many reasons. But you'll see why in just a few minutes if you're new to the Wednesday wellness webinars, why he's going to be an integral part of this series. So here we go. All right, Dr. Hopkins has been a practicing ER physician for the past 20 years. He currently is a staff physician for the Dell Medical School at the University of Texas at Austin. Dr. Hopkins has collaborated with the leading researchers and physicians in the advanced diagnostic laboratory industry space. He was instrumental in designing a diabetes awareness campaign and has collaborated closely with the American Diabetes Association and the Joslin Diabetes Center, and is the founder of yourlabwork.com, which is what we're going to talk about today and what we're going to look at today and all of that good stuff. So thanks again for being with us and welcome back to my world here, Dr. Allen.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes.
Super excited to hear or to meet a lot of these people that are so interested in helping other people and interested in their own personal health. That's always super exciting for me.
Yes. And so the theme of this new series that I've begun is from dependence to independence. How do we get our medical and health freedom back? And so, I have to be honest with you and tell you, as I rolled this program and this whole project out the last couple of months, I've had people ask me, you're going to bring a doctor into this thing, but aren't we trying to move away from depending on doctors? And I always say, Dr. Allen is not a normal doctor. Okay, so he is a conventional medical doctor with a functional mind that wants to empower and help people to feel more proactive in their life. So just wanted to bring that clarity to that and just let you know that you're, and I know, blush at the compliments, but you're one of a kind and I trust you. And that's why you're here to share information today. So everybody, questions, go in the Q&A at the bottom of the Zoom link. If you're brand new to all of this or technically challenged, it's really easy. Go down to Q&A, you click it. Please keep your questions in that area so that we can stay streamlined. And today we're going to talk about the what, when, why, and where of labs. And so I'm going to just let Dr. Allen kind of start with why did you start a platform for people to be able to order their own labs? And, what do you feel it does for people, like the general public? What is it doing for them?
Yeah, so to answer that, really, it kind of starts from the very beginning, which was for me is when I am a conventionally trained doctor, but then I did an anti-aging fellowship through the American Academy of Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine. And after doing that, I became very interested in intercepting disease. So instead of just taking care of people at the end stage of their life, which oftentimes I do in the ER, wouldn't it be great if we could say, hey, it looks like you're trending towards diabetes or you're trending towards chronic inflammation and we need to reverse that. And so the whole idea was maybe we could use some lab tests. Now, how do we make it direct to the public? Well, it really honestly started with Obamacare, because what ended up happening when Obamacare passed is that people's deductibles skyrocketed. And about 70% of the patients in my practice would get these lab bills that were super high, and their deductibles went from $500 to $5,000. And so for me, it was actually a way of trying to save people money. So I started for people based upon what I saw in my practice. Is there an easier way where they can go and order their own blood tests? And more importantly, I also saw that people suddenly had an interest. They were way more interested since they were spending the money. Well, what do these tests mean? And what is my doctor going to really do about these tests? And what natural things can I do to try to actually bring these tests in alignment? And so from that, we started yourlabwork.com, which is a national platform. It's available in almost every state. There are a couple restricted states, New York and New Jersey and Rhode Island. They don't allow you to go and order your own blood tests, but these other states do. And it's actually kind of a misnomer. You're not ordering your own tests, you're putting in a request for an order. And then one of our physicians providers orders the test, and then the results are sent to you.
Okay.
With the Cures Act, this act that was just passed recently, now all of the labs will be available immediately to patients. Used to be they'd have to wait a period of days. So if we use Quest Diagnostics for a lot of our blood tests, well, most of our blood tests. And so what happens with them is that you can download the MyQuest app, and you can get the results sent directly to your app. So it's a way of, number one, saving money for a lot of people. It is cash, so it's not covered by insurance. If you have great insurance, some people work for these huge companies, Samsung and, Amazon or whatever, and they actually have very low deductibles. You should try to use your insurance, but it just means you'll have to go to your doctor first, maybe inconvenient. Interestingly enough, with COVID, we found that our business is up about 30%. Over where it was, because people are like, I don't want the hassle of having to go another place where I have to wear a mask and go to my doctor's office and ask for a test that they may not grant anyways. And I don't want to go through that process. So some people are sort of skipping that line, ordering direct online, and then they're getting the blood test results delivered to them either through the app or to their email. We deliver it securely via email, to everybody's inbox is how we work. But you can do the MyQuest app. So that's kind of how we got started, was to save people money. And what we found is that there's a niche community out there called health coaches. And they're super interested in not only helping their clients save money, but also helping their clients understand how to navigate the whole process, because medicine is very complicated. And unfortunately, many people get led down the wrong, road. They may go get a cholesterol panel. We see this happen all the time. And they get the test done and nobody ever says anything about it. They don't even know what the results are. Well, you're okay. Well, if you actually look at it, you're not okay. You're doing terrible. And there's some really natural things that a person could start doing. One of the things that comes to mind is triglycerides. Somebody's triglycerides are really high. It usually means that they're actually taking in too much sugar and they're storing it as fat. And these free fatty acids, 3 of them hooked together, are called a triglyceride. And one of the most effective ways to lower triglycerides are to take omega-3 fish oil. So wouldn't it be great, if your triglycerides are high, you take omega-3s, and then through the learning process, you also learn that omega-3s can lower chronic inflammation. So if you measure inflammatory markers, particularly high sensitivity CRP, you can see that level come down as you increase your dosing of omega-3s. And by the way, you can actually get your omega-3 index measured, and you can actually see if you're optimal or not. Are you taking in enough consistently in your diet? And so by doing these sort of interventions for people, by allowing them access to the education piece and direct ordering, we're actually giving the power back to the people. And that's really what it's all about, is putting more power in the hands of people that are interested. Obviously, if you're not interested, then it's not helpful. But health coaches are very interested, and clients of yours are very interested in, hey, what can I do naturally? What can I, because my doctor's not telling me any of this. My doctor tells me to lose weight, exercise, and that's it. And I think nutraceuticals, a lot of them, if used for the right reasons, actually truly do work, and they will change your blood results, which will make you healthier and less likely to have strokes and heart attacks and all these things that we see at the end of life in the ER.
Yeah. And we are going to talk about in April, I'll announce it at the end, but we are going to talk about the ER. I'll explain what that webinar is going to be about at the end here today. But I want to share my own personal experience and why I'm such a fan of this opportunity for people, was because my own health journey, was like going to the lab, asking, for what I wanted, right? And then the insurance denying it or getting charged excessively. And then waiting 4 weeks for the doctor to tell me to come in and look at the labs. And I love to look at labs. Like, I'm a geek about it. So I get excited when I get my labs pulled. I literally look at email every day. I'm like, are they in yet? So for me, it was the fact that I didn't want to wait. I wanted to be more proactive in my health. I wanted to have more independence, and because I knew that I could take good care of myself, right? I got into that place of empowerment. And just recently, my triglycerides were at 110 a year ago because I was under a lot of stress. I was eating a lot of sweet potatoes. just got them done recently again as a proactive measure, and they're literally down to like 50 something. So I was thrilled about that. So that alone, seeing that in black and white, I think can be really powerful. Have you seen the feedback from people from like when they see it? It's kind of like, oh my God, it's the heart attack, or oh yay, I'm doing something right. I mean, do you see that a lot?
Yeah. So what you'll find, particularly if you're a health coach and you actually, participate in the process of looking at people's labs and the excitement that they get when they actually see how they themselves and their behavior changes the labs. That's one of the most empowering things for you as someone who supports them, because it's accountability is really what it is. I mean, the labs don't lie, and it puts it all out there. And I can tell how my patients are eating just by looking at their lab work. And I can tell oftentimes what supplements they're taking. And, it tells the story behind the scenes. And it's really funny because once you get people who do labs consistently, you'll see them do things they know they shouldn't, just to see what happens. And then when they see it and they realize it, it actually is empowering too. So lab work can be very empowering because of accountability. And obviously we use it to try to intercept disease, which is something that I encourage all health coaches, to really work with their clients on doing, is really trying to identify those areas that are problematic, the areas that raise red flags, and then to really work with them before they have, that problem, before they have that early stroke or heart attack.
Right.
And of course, I'm passionate about the advanced cholesterol panel. I saw that somebody got an advanced cholesterol panel, and really talking about lipoprotein A and getting that message out there. Have you had your lipoprotein A checked? What is that? I've never heard of that. And to me, as a health coach, you should know what it is, because 99% of people out there don't. And 20% of the people that you meet will have it. And these are the people that have the early strokes and heart attacks, because it's a super small, dense cholesterol molecule that causes clotting. And so they're much more likely to have the blood clots, either pulmonary embolisms or DVTs, or they're much more likely to have the clots form in their coronary arteries and have a heart attack, or in their cerebral arteries and have a stroke. Think of it this way: lipoprotein A is kind of the equivalent to smoking a pack a day of cigarettes for 30 years. All right, so it's a risk factor that nobody knows that they have unless they get checked. So what if you were, it doesn't mean as a health coach, you don't have to take care of the problem, but what you could do is identify, hey, this is a risk that not a lot of people know about, and I'm going to start talking about it. And I'm going to start pointing people toward the resources that we have, where you can bypass your doctor and go get it checked yourself. And then you could work, if you are positive and you're highly positive, you can work with your doctor on a very close monitoring of yourself as you age.
Right.
It's so common. I mean, and so that's just one example of a lab that really does make a difference when you know something about it. Years ago, we've identified that in our family, we have lipoprotein A. My wife's father has it, and it's genetically determined. So every one of your children has a 50% chance. And so we found that, she had it. And so now we know that our kids carry a 50% risk. So how did we monitor her father? Well, we sent him for a coronary calcium score, which is basically an X-ray or a CAT scan that looks at calcium deposit around the arteries. A score is 0, which means you're looking great, no calcium. Doesn't look like there's atherosclerosis developing, to 400, where it looks like there's terrible atherosclerosis and problems. And he scored a 2,200 and something. So he had massive problems. And so when this happens, then we know, hey, you should go see a cardiologist and sort of preempt this thing. And so went and saw the cardiologist. He ended up getting an angiogram, and they found that he had a severe blockage in his widowmaker artery. At any one time, he could have just suddenly developed a clot there. And widowmaker artery issues, widowmaker artery, when you get it, you're dead. So there's no coming to the ER and getting resuscitated. We rarely are able to save those people. And so he underwent a bypass and got this problem fixed. So now he has new plumbing, but it's because he was identified early, followed closely. And now we know that, with my wife, we have to follow her closely. Ultimately our kids will have to follow them closely. And so there are things that we know, don't smoke with this, you need to work on exercising, increasing your good cholesterol, your HDL, because that's what removes the lipoprotein A from our arteries, and for these people, maybe they want to talk to their doctor about taking a daily aspirin because they're higher risk for stroke. So these are the little things that as health coaches, we don't have to worry about treating and fixing. Well, we can worry about educating and providing resources and identifying red flags. And this is a huge red flag that I love for all people to know about. And if you're out there as a general public and you've never had a lipoprotein A test, it's super inexpensive, okay? You could come to our site and just order the lipoprotein A test alone, and I think it's $30. That includes a phlebotomy fee, okay? So you skipped your copay to your doctor, you don't have to pay any phlebotomist, and you send $30 to us, our doctor orders it, you get the results sent to you. If it's elevated, oh, that's an issue you need to talk to your doctor about. And by the way, I send a video along with the result that talks specifically about the lipoprotein A. So that when you walk into your doctor's office or you sit down with your client, there's a baseline knowledge there, of information that makes sense. And hopefully that will lead to questions that you'll have for your doctor. And honestly, sometimes doctors have to be educated too, because they may not know. And it's important that you know, and you have the proper resources so that they can get an education. I've probably learned more from my patients than in any textbook. So,
well, you're open-minded and you listen. I mean, I had a couple doctors, at one time that were that way, where I said, I had a CAT scan on my heart. It's 0. I have no calcium buildup. And they're like, how did you learn about that? How did you know? And how did you get that? I never placed the order. Well, I went into the hospital and placed it for myself at the time. So let's talk about the kind of the when, because here's one of the things that I found as a health coach over a decade of working with hundreds of clients is that they like to go, oh, no. I don't want to do that because I don't want to know. Right. And then I've worked with the other, part of the population that goes, I'm going to get every lab done. But when I see it, I don't want to know what it means, right? It's almost like people are afraid to see on paper what could be happening instead of going, I'm excited about what I can do to be in charge of what the changes could be, right? So when do you start getting those basic tests and start with the basics here? We're talking like, what's a good yearly thing to do? And what age would you start that at? Like at 35, I started doing CBC, CMT, thyroid, just a general, like take a look at it all once a year.
Yeah. So for us, in the anti-aging world, when we're really talking about identifying problem areas, we recommend at least once a year you do a comprehensive set of blood work. If you can do it, we have this thing called a transformation panel, and it goes on sale a couple of times a year through our site, but it's a complete, very comprehensive test. It looks at your blood count, looks at your electrolytes, your liver function tests, looks at advanced cholesterol panel, looks at inflammatory markers, looks at autoimmune markers. Homocysteine is another example. It's a great test to know about and to learn about because it's not commonly checked. It's not covered by insurance. It can be quite predictive of not only future heart attack, but also dementia, which is a big, concern for a lot of people. And then, of course, sugar evaluation, including not only your glucose and A1C, but also your insulin. And insulin's the first thing that tends to go out of whack as you go down the road to type 2 diabetes. So it is nice to know that your fasting insulin is normal, along with a normal blood sugar and a normal A1C. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, no stress, because that's the whole process. Is like you take sort of one little area at a time and you learn about it. If you're a woman, you have to be sort of paranoid about autoimmune disease, particularly the most common form, as you mentioned, is thyroid, And so getting your thyroid checked once a year for a woman is really important. And not only do you want to check your TSH, which is pretty much the only test that doctors will want to do, but you want to look at your active thyroid hormones. And so you want to look at that free T3. T4 is inactive, and it's converted into T3. We like to look at all three together to see how that conversion process is going. And then we also like to look at the antibodies, because if the antibodies are positive, that indicates an autoimmune disease. And again, women are about 8 to 10 times more likely to develop autoimmune thyroid disease, as well as many other autoimmune diseases. But that is all part of a comprehensive blood test that we do. You can start off very basic and just look for a complete blood count and look at your comprehensive metabolic panel, which will give you, the function of your bone marrow, which is your CBC, right? So it looks at your red blood cells and your white blood cells. It's really good to look at because it'll pick up sometimes a lot of the blood cancers. And identifying those early and getting proper intervention is super important. Your CMP looks at your liver function, your kidney function, electrolytes. And if any of those are off, those are always reasons to, talk to your doctor about them. And then, of course, thyroid test. If you're a woman, I really recommend at least annually thyroid testing. So that would be the bare minimum that I would look at. And, a CBC and a CMP on our website, $39 for both of those. Okay. And that includes a blood draw fee. And again, you're not having to go into a doctor if you don't have the copay. So most people have a $40 copay or $50, and some people higher, plus they have co-insurance. We don't have to worry about any of that. You can just go get that $39 test and you'll know your CBC and CMP. And then for a woman, I would probably add on those thyroid tests we talked about. All less than $100 will get you looking at the antibodies, the peroxidase antibodies, and the active hormones, as well as the TSH. So it's not a super expensive thing that we're talking about for close monitoring of people's health. And I think more importantly is if you can have the resources in your hand to help them learn about what these tests are all about. And that's what we try to help with. And when we send out our test results, we like to send out little educational videos that will just kind of go through a complete blood count and a CBC. And some people watch them, probably many people don't. But it's one of those things where I try to really get people to pay attention to the abnormalities.
Yeah. And let's add on there that, the goal here with this whole series is to underwhelm everyone, right? To underwhelm the health coaches that are working with the client so they don't feel like they have to learn everything there is to know about lipoprotein A or cholesterol or whatever. To underwhelm the general public who might get a little red mark that says high when something's 1 point over, and all of a sudden they're going to Dr. Google, which is the last place you should go when you're trying to look at understanding your labs, right? So the goal is to help people to feel more in control and to not feel so overwhelmed and stressed out about labs. Labs are an important, in my opinion, a black and white, like you said, you see it on paper, there it is, you can't deny it. But you also get the opportunity to make the changes, work with someone that can help you make the changes, and then, come back and order them again later after you've done that and see what your improvements are. And I don't know about you, but I think sometimes when people head into a new way of living, they get anxious anyway. They get a little bit anxious about making changes. They get nervous about, whether or not they're going to stick it out. But when they see that number, sometimes it's like, I really don't have a choice here. And for me, that was my HbA1c back when the triglycerides and all that stuff was going on last year. I just say it's all stress and sweet potatoes because I don't eat a whole lot of junk food. But my HbA1c this round was 5.0. My insulin was 2, something like that. But I was literally looking at those numbers and going, what is going on here? Right. So even us health coaches, you guys, we are not perfect. We have stress in lives that happen, things that happen to us. So for me, it's important that I have those numbers so I can hold myself accountable, like you said. So let's talk just a little bit more about, let's say if someone comes to you, your site, and they want to order labs. Why don't we open up the share and let's go ahead and let me give you share access here, and let's open up your site. And I want you to just kind of give everybody a tour. What would it look like if I come to you and I want to order labs and I go to your site? What do you do? Like, kind of give us a tour of that. Let's see if you're able to share. And I'm going to check the chat while you're doing that and see how we're doing over here.
Okay, sure. The one thing I wanted to say before I do that is, as a health coach, I just want to teach you something very basic. And that is, after working with thousands of people and trying to get them to change their behavior, the best thing that you can do as a health coach is make it simple. And so I always tell my patients, I want you to tell me 3 things that you're going to commit to. Just 3. I don't care about, like, I've given you a list of what Dr. Allen thinks is the 100 things you should be doing, but I don't want to overwhelm you. I want you to commit to just 3 things that you're going to do until I see you again. And, some people might say, well, I'll exercise at least twice a week for 30 minutes. I'll take my vitamin D. And you know what? You've convinced me to take some omega-3 fish oil. So I'll do those 3 things. And you hold them accountable to only those 3 things. And if they do other things, great, but you have to give them little victories along the way. And that's the best way to do it, is simplicity and consistency is what I've seen people do to move the needle the most, because then they stay excited. They don't get too down on themselves. Usually by the time somebody comes to see you, they've already had multiple failures along the way. But a lot of doctors, they felt like people didn't care about them. They didn't listen to them. They didn't give them the proper tools. That's why they're finding you, is because you're there to listen. So anyway, I'm sure you talk about that, but I wanted just to let you know that it's a huge thing with us. Okay, let's see here.
I call that the overwhelm symptom chaser. I say there's two types of people we're working with. You've got the standard American person, what a terrible acronym, right? The SAP. And then we've got the overwhelmed symptom chaser, like you just explained. They've been down that road, they're tired of chasing things, and they're just looking for some way for somebody to help them out and see their blind spots without all the money and all the overwhelm. So 100% with you on that. All right, are you able to share? I just want to make sure you've got
Okay,
access.
I am. Yeah, I'm trying to do. Okay, here we go. All right. So, can you see this here?
Yep, you're all good.
All right. So essentially, what will happen if they come to our homepage, the first thing we want to let them know and be very upfront with is that what states are excluded. So you'll see that New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Rhode Island, and Arizona. And Arizona is actually a wide open state. The problem is that Quest doesn't have the contracts there anymore. It's a Quest Sonora, which is a completely different company. We used to have contracts there, and they got rid of them. So until we get those back online, we don't take any Arizona ones. As a health coach, the cool thing, and I always try to recommend this, is I don't know if you recommend this, but building online programs. People have become much more, particularly this post-COVID thing, people become much more used to the idea of communicating in this fashion, and helping people across state lines and getting information out there and selling programs and stuff. So the nice thing about if you guys decide to use these lab tests on yourself, for example, you can sign up to be an affiliate, and we're the only company that I'm aware of, maybe there are others, that once you sign up to be an affiliate, we will actually do shares on your own blood work. So let's say you wanted to go do an advanced cholesterol panel, we're going to actually give you your affiliate share on your own blood work. Not everybody does that. I don't know why they don't do it. It seems like they should. So the one thing here is I'm going to just click under lab testing here. So we have popular panels. So this is for somebody who, they're not exactly sure what they want. They want to see what tests are available. But our most common one that we see is individual tests. These people can create their own panels. And then finally, we have functional medicine tests. These came about because health coaches from all over the place were into a lot of these functional medicine tests. They want to do food allergy testing. That's a pretty huge thing. That's probably the most commonly one. Mm-hmm. They want to do, GI tests, where they're looking at, anything that Genova does. And they want to do some toxicity tests too, where they want to look at toxins in their own home. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's glyphosate everywhere. As they're spraying the plants outside, the glyphosate leaches in the soil. We can eat the food. We can actually get it in our own water. So there are ways where you can actually check your tap water and send it in to the lab, and they'll actually tell you how many parts per million of glyphosate in there and whether or not it's a concern. Or you can test it in yourself. You can pee into a cup and send it into the lab, and they can tell you how much glyphosate you have in your system. And so because we know that glyphosate is a strong linkage to cancer, some people want to know. And now we have the ability to check for these things. And so it was really health coaches that brought this to us and said, hey, we're very interested in you adding these type of tests. So I'm going to click on that first and just show you what that looks like. So if you order functional medicine tests, they tend to be a little bit more expensive. They're done by specialty labs. They're not done by Quest. Every single one of these is a test kit that is mailed out to a person's home, and they collect the sample. So it's either a stool sample or a urine sample, or in the case of food allergy testing, it's a pinprick. So they'll prick their finger and they'll do blood spot testing. And then also there is an intestinal permeability test, sort of a leaky gut test that sometimes people are interested. And the SIBO is a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. But if you're wondering what any of these are, you don't have to stress out. What I love about these tests here is that they have really good explanations. And so you can go through and read, why would I ever want to get this test? And so if your client is like thinking, well, could I have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? I've heard of it. I have this, chronic abdominal pain, diarrhea, and I've seen all these doctors and they tell me they have problems, but do I have this or not? You can actually get it tested now. So it's pretty cool. And the results for all these functional medicine tests come with very clear explanations. Mm-hmm. So it's not just they give you the result, they give you the result, and they have a couple pages where they actually go through and they explain what the results mean. And so I found that really helpful when it comes to these functional medicine tests. All right, so now I'm going to go to just the blood tests. Now, these are done at Quest Diagnostics. And so the way it works is, let's say you're a woman. And by the way, I have this program, and I know that many of your health coaches have taken it in the past. It's called the Master Class. And it's basically something that I started for practitioners, other doctors and so on. But I wrote it at a level that really anybody that could understand, as long as they were interested in their health. And the whole masterclass is designed around the principles of anti-aging. And the way that everything is laid out on our website, particularly here, is it's laid out with these 5 pillars of health. So to the right are the descriptions. So we have hormones that we always worry about. And you can see there's all kinds of hormones. We got thyroid hormones, we got sex hormones, we got fat hormones. Did you know your fat cells are the biggest hormone factory in your body? It's the biggest endocrine organ that we have, is our fat. And our belly fat can oftentimes determine how sick we are. Just because a person is overweight doesn't mean that they're going to get sick with diabetes and chronic inflammation, all this stuff. And how do we know? We can actually measure these hormones from their fat. And this is kind of cutting edge, by the way. Insurance doesn't cover it. People don't really know much about it, but in research, we know a lot about it. And in anti-aging, we know a lot about it. And we know that adiponectin is a good anti-inflammatory hormone that your fat cells produce. And if your number is above 10, it's quite protective for your heart. And leptin, which is this one here, it's very unhealthy and it's pro-inflammatory. So you can literally look at somebody who's overweight and you can check these fat hormones, and it gives you a really good idea on whether or not they're in trouble. If their pro-inflammatory hormone is high and their protective hormone, the adiponectin, is really low, they're at much higher risk. And we know that if their adiponectin level is low, they're 8 times more likely to develop diabetes. So is this just interesting? Yeah, it's interesting. But is it motivational? And if it's motivational for someone, that's what we want. Okay, we're not here to discourage, we're here to encourage and to be able to tell them, look, we're trying to intercept something. We're not even having to worry about it right now. We're intercepting it. We're identifying it as a problem, and we're going to address it, and we're going to monitor it over time, just like we did with my wife's father. All right, so we talk about hormones, and then we go down here, we talk about sugar problems. Okay, that's another pillar of health. Then we talk about cholesterol, which is a cholesterol testing. We explain why we should measure it. And here's that lipoprotein A. 1 in 5 people have this thing, so it's pretty common. Mm-hmm. And then it moves down to inflammatory markers, and then finally nutrients, general health testing, and then we have the food tolerance testing and exposure. Some people want to know if they've had heavy metal exposure and so on. So to the right are the descriptions. And it's just important because some people just don't know what the tests are and they would like a little brief description. And then over here to the left are the hormones. And see, this is where you can go and you can order one hormone at a time if you wanted to, or you can be smart about it and package them together. And so I always think that it's smarter to try to do a package if you can. It's just more bang for the buck. But some people
stay there for a second, if you don't mind. If you'll scroll up for a second, I would like to make a real quick point about what you said earlier. The TSH is what you were talking about. For those who aren't familiar with thyroid hormones, when you were explaining it, the TSH is what Dr. Allen was telling us is pretty much the gold standard for testing the thyroid. But then he mentioned the free T3, which is the available hormone in your blood to tell you how your thyroid's functioning, right? So I want to make this point because this is one of the most missed opportunities for people when they say, well, they said my thyroid was fine because my TSH is normal, and yet they continue to not feel well and they just toss this one aside, right? So this is important because many times doctors will not order anything past that TSH. I don't know what it is, but no, we don't do that is what I hear a lot. Or we'll do the total T4, but not this one. So this is extremely affordable, you guys. So if you have a doctor, let me just say, if you love your doctor, great. And they just won't order this and you don't want to just fire them for this one thing, you can always come here and do this on your own. So I just want to throw that out because I have suggested this more than any test to clients than at all, like literally had to send them here to get this test. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and we're having more trouble these days with the conversion process of taking that. So TSH comes from the brain, right? And it tells our thyroid we need more or less thyroid hormone. The real question for us as practitioners is, does a person actually make the actual active hormone? Is it actually getting inside their cells and doing what it's supposed to be doing? Okay, think of it as the caffeine of the body. Are we actually measuring the caffeine, or are we just measuring the signal that says I need more caffeine? And what doctors are doing right now is they're measuring the signal, which sometimes is fine. But what we find is there are many things that interfere with the conversion of T4. So 80% of what your thyroid actually makes is this inactive T4, and your body has to convert it into the active T3. But if you never look at how that conversion process is going, then you'll get a chance, you'll miss out on a chance to fix it. And right now, the most common reason that I saw was insulin resistance. We have many people struggling with insulin resistance. Of course, their doctor never checks an insulin, so we never know this is the problem. But once we fix that insulin problem, the conversion gets better. Also, vitamin D deficiency. People that are lower in vitamin D, you start supplementing vitamin D, that conversion process can work better. And pretty soon they start feeling better, more energy, their weight starts coming off, and so on. And so if you're out there and you're struggling with depression, if you're having trouble with weight, and you've never actually checked your active thyroid hormone, really important to do so. And you really want to make sure that active thyroid hormone is good. And again, this is free T3. And again, if you're feeling overwhelmed by everything I just said, because it's the first time you heard it, just understand it. If you order these tests, you're going to get a video of me going through in a PowerPoint, so you can listen and read in front of you, and you can see the process, and by watching it a couple times, I promise you, go and you'll ask such great questions of your practitioner if you choose to share the results with them. That's another important point. Some people go to our site for privacy. They don't want it in any medical records. They don't want it on any insurance. They don't want anything. They want it just private. And that's the way it is. We don't share the information at all. Quest gives us the information. We give it to you. There is no notification of any third party. There's no insurance, nothing like that. And so, of course, we are governed by HIPAA, which is the privacy laws to protect your health information. So some people will come to us because maybe they've gone for life insurance, or they're going to go get life insurance. And they just want to see what problems they can fix, and they start working on those problems. So that's another sort of advantage of direct access testing.
I'm so glad you mentioned all of that. That is such a good point. And one I had not thought of before is that, this does allow you that privacy. If you're trying to get health insurance, like I had to do last year when I didn't realize that I was not covered after my divorce, I'm like, oh my gosh, what, and thank God I wasn't taking any medication, and still, I'm still good on that. But I was nervous about that. Right. What are they going to find? What are they going to see? Yeah. Awesome.
The other thing too that I'll say is that some people will have HSAs, or health savings accounts, or flexible savings accounts. In our experience over the last couple of years, people have been able to use those just fine and get reimbursed. Private health insurance will not pay for this type of testing. And here's the reason why. They're so sneaky. They're very, very sneaky. They won't pay for this testing because they want a diagnostic code to go with it. So when you come to my office, I look at you and I say, well, rule out hypothyroidism. And so I'll write that on an ICD-10 diagnostic code. So if they see that diagnostic code and they see the lab test, they'll say, I'll pay for it. But if I order vitamin D with it and I don't put vitamin D deficiency in my diagnosis, they'll say, well, we're not going to pay for this vitamin D. And Aetna just sent me a letter not too long ago where it said in Texas, they're going to stop paying for vitamin D testing for preventative measures. And I know why they did it is it's a more expensive test. And also more people are ordering it. More doctors are ordering it because we know that higher vitamin D levels are associated with less autoimmune disease, less seizures, a better control of blood pressure, less depression. And we talked about the thyroid conversion. So now it's getting into mainstream conventional medicine. Maybe we should be monitoring vitamin Ds, and maybe we should be doing it sort of in a preventative way. And insurance companies are now shifting all that cost onto the patient, by denying the payment. So you end up getting a big charge from, Quest for, whatever it is for this vitamin D that your insurance didn't pay for. So but your HSA and your FSAs are, work for this kind of thing. And it's not for everybody. Again, if you have great insurance, try to route them to their doctor to use their insurance. But unfortunately for people, in my experience, about 70% of people in my area go much better if they just go direct and they get their own lab test. They actually save money. So they're always happy about that.
Yep. Good.
Okay, getting back to this. So once you actually purchase it, I'm just going to click on this. Okay. So let's just say you want a TSH, and I know that you're against just the TSH, but for purposes of just me ordering this, I'm going to go. So I add it to my card here. You go and you check out, and You just go over here and let's see if I can get my shopping cart to actually work here. All right, and so I'm going to go to proceed to checkout. There's some important things that you have to know about, just because sometimes patients aren't comfortable with it. But understand, for ordering purposes, we need to have their date of birth. We need to know what gender they are. If you get the gender wrong on people, it means that the lab values change. So my reference range is much different for a male versus a female. Testosterone comes to mind. Sometimes will happen where somebody will put in female when they're male and they get the female range for testosterone. So it confuses them. So these basic information you put in, your billing information, so on, and then you can just check out with credit card. You can use PayPal, whatever you want. After this is done, we are notified that an order was put in. And on our end, the person who works with the ordering is my mom. Okay, she's the best employee I've ever had. And I promise you, if you deal with our company at all and you talk to my mom, you'll be the happiest person in the world, because everybody loves my mom and she bends over backwards to make you happy.
Are you sure that's not my mom that's listening right now? Because that's my mom.
Well, I actually had two other people doing this, and my mom asked me, if she could do a little part-time work for me. And I said, sure. Well, she started doing it and she was so good at it and so efficient, and she loved it so much. She said, hey, could I work some more? And pretty much now she does it all. She enters all the orders, and which is great for me, because it's fun to work with my mom. And for some people that may not be the thing, but for me, it's been a lot of fun. So my mom puts the orders into the Quest portal. It's a portal that we do, so everything's done online. And once she puts the orders in electronically, you're totally good. Now, here's the thing that we want to tell you is that electronically is not good enough for some people, because if they show up at the lab work at the Quest diagnostic facility to get their blood work drawn, some of these facilities don't check the national computer system. We had to learn this the hard way. We didn't know there was a national system and a local system. So what we found is, to make sure they find your actual requisition, we now will actually send you via email your lab requisition. So within 24 hours of you ordering, and we say that because we don't work 24 hours a day. So, sometimes you put the order in, it gets to you within an hour, but if you place after 5 o'clock, it's not going to arrive till the next day. But when you get in your email, we recommend that you just look at it on your phone and bring it up, or print it out, even better. And then when you walk in, you hand it to the phlebotomist. And the reason why is because it shows them our national code for our contracts, so that everything's very clear. You don't have to be charged. They're not going to bill your insurance. Everything's totally covered. So I always recommend just taking that lab requisition and handing it to them. If for whatever reason you forget it, there's a 90% chance they're going to find your lab requisition anyway. This just knocked out the other 10%. We rarely have problems now. I would say maybe 1 out of 1,000 people have trouble at the actual draw station now, whereas before it was like 10 out of 100 because they couldn't find the national system. Mm-hmm. After a period of a few days, you'll get notified, depending on what lab test you ordered. You'll get notified by us that it's complete. It'll come across to your email, and you'll download it with a password that we're going to provide to you. And we do it encrypted that way because of HIPAA. We're keeping your information private. Now in mid-April or so, you'll be able to do the MyQuest app, and the results will go there when they're completed. Some tests take longer, by the way. The advanced cholesterol panel takes up to 10 business days. It's because it's not actually done by Quest. I think it's shipped out to another company called Aftertech, and they do it. They incorporated a Cleveland Heart lab recently, so they might be doing it. It's just not done in their usual way, so sometimes it takes longer for an advanced cholesterol panel. But most results are back within a week to 10 days, and we get that question a lot.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, when you first came on the scene, I immediately used you, like immediately. And I had that problem where they couldn't find my requisition. Yeah. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, I just did this yesterday. Right. But then the next time I did it, it must've been right after all of that. It was seamless, literally seamless. Here you go. Okay. And I'll say this too, what I found interesting, because I've been to different labs. I've lived in 2 different cities and used you. And I've had people say, well, this is cool. You mean you ordered these by yourself? You didn't have to have a doctor? Like, phlebotomists sometimes don't even know that this is possible. So I like to be able to share that information with them too, let them know that, this came from, I'm able to do this on my own.
All right, that's a good time for me to talk real quick about
Yep.
patient safety. So what goes on behind the scenes that you guys don't know is that there is a doctor, and in some states you're required to have a doctor license in that state. So Pennsylvania is an example. So if you're in Pennsylvania, you order the test, it has to be ordered by a licensed doctor in Pennsylvania. So for me, like I have multiple state licenses, and it just so happens I have a license in Pennsylvania. And so basically my name would go on the requisition. But when it comes to patient safety, what happens is there's very clear indications that Quest has as a lab that they're required to call us and notify us of a critical lab result. So we had somebody, reminds me I think they were from Colorado. They'd ordered blood tests, and their hemoglobin, which is a measure of how much red blood cells that you have, was very, very low. So they had lost about 5 out of 6, they've lost, let's just say they've lost 80% of their blood. Okay. So they're walking around feeling super fatigued, short of breath when they go upstairs, those kind of things. Really, really low. And so Quest notifies us, our doctors are notified, and then our doctors make an outbound call to that person. And in this case, we had to find that lady. She wasn't at home. We had to find her with the police at her work because we're worried. We get a blood result that we're called on. We want to identify that person and let them know this is a panic value. Okay. We're not going to be calling if your cholesterol's high. It's not a panic value. These are values that need immediate intervention for your protection. So either real high potassium level that could, cause an arrhythmia and cause you to die, or real low blood count that can cause you to pass out, potentially die. So in her case, we got her on the phone. We were like, hey, look, we're real happy you had this blood test done. How are you feeling? She's like, I'm feeling kind of short of breath, kind of weak. That's why I did the test. And I said, when was the last time you saw a doctor? Well, I haven't seen a doctor in 20 years. But because this test was only, I paid $39 and I had the blood count and the CMP, I thought it would be good for me. And I said, are you bleeding anywhere? Well, yeah, I've been having heavy periods for the last 10 years, and I bleed very, very heavy. And I said, well, you got to the point where you need a blood transfusion. So you need to go to the ER tonight, and they're going to verify your blood count, which I'm sure is going to be accurate, and then you're going to receive a blood transfusion. Called her back, the next day, super happy person. Okay. Thank you so much for sending me in. Yes, I needed a blood transfusion. Yes, I've been bleeding heavily for many years. And they told me I have this fibroid they found. I have a gynecologist that I'm going to see, and all it's going to be taken care of. Thank you so much. And that person's actually life, honestly, may have been saved. It was that low. Oh. So behind the scenes, and I know that health coaches are always worried about, I can't be careful about recommending that kind of stuff. Just understand, you're giving a resource. If you're working with companies like ours that are very compliant and we know the laws and we, know what we're doing, and we're actually concerned about these people, they're getting their tests done, just know there's processes in place that really help that person. And we try to protect them as best we possibly can to let them know if there's something they need to take immediate action on. And sometimes we'll see, well, you didn't tell me my thyroid was high. Well, that doesn't require immediate action, but any result that's out of normal, we always tell people you should at least talk to your provider about that to better understand it. We can't fix all things for all people, but there is a very tight process around immediate notification parameters.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's great. And again, if it's not, it's a, what did you call it? A non, when it's not an urgent thing. Gosh, what was the word you used? Anyway, well, when it's not urgent and it is something that is asking for attention, right? A little red flag, like my cholesterol showed 202 because my HDL was so high. It showed that I was, and then it was flagged red or whatever. For anyone that doesn't understand that, that's not a bad mark. It's actually really good. As you age, you want a higher cholesterol level. For someone that doesn't know that might cause them to feel anxious or nervous or scared or something like that. That's another thing that health coaches are great for. We're here to do all the non-emergent stuff. We're here to help support you and help you take a deep breath around that kind of thing so that we can allow you to help you understand. And then you take action by seeing your practitioner if it's something you feel you need to take further. that we're just kind of a middle guy here to help you, to support you in that way. And thankfully, we have a lot of good board certified smart health coaches out there that are part of your team already that are able to support this process.
Yeah, it's really awesome to be able to just provide the person the resources and know that, you are not ultimately responsible for them, getting the help they need, but they need to know, hey, this is a good resource for you. And I always encourage health coaches, the learning never stops. It never stops for me. If you became a health coach, there's a reason why. Being a health coach is, not so easy. I mean, you've got to really work with people that are struggling, but they really need you. We need more health coaches out there.
Yeah.
And so I hope that more people become, interested in the process, because you guys can help so many people by just providing them direction, giving them the right resources and the places they can go. Which reminds me that if you haven't signed up to be an affiliate, at the bottom of every single page of our website, there is a affiliate area and a become an affiliate. We approve most people. There's a few that just are, they're way out. We try to research everybody a little bit. Now, some people we can't research as much as others, but, we're just looking for people that, make sense for us to partner with. But if you're going to get your own blood work done and you haven't become an affiliate, you're just missing out on an opportunity to save money on blood tests. That $39 could become, $39 less your affiliate payout. So I always encourage people, even if they're not going to become an affiliate that promotes it everywhere, go ahead and sign up to be an affiliate, if only to save money for yourself and your family.
Yeah.
Because that's what that's for. We do have an affiliate area, and we have affiliate resources, which I can share, later on with people if they're interested. But it's just basically where we give people access to email copy they may want to send out to their people about direct access testing. We give them access to creatives that we have and blogs that I've written on various topics. And you can go to the blogs on our website and see some of the stuff that we're up to here. We talk about how to keep your brain, healthy as you age, the 5 secrets to aging well, and so on. But these are all things that people in general are pretty interested in. We got a lot of people interested in Dutch hormone testing. That's a dried urine testing. So there's a lot of really advanced tests that are now out there that can really, give people insight they wouldn't otherwise be able to get. Don't let someone tell you you're crazy, when the only problem is it's just a little bit of blood work that needs to be fixed. That's all.
Yeah, agree. And let's just say this too. A lot of people don't want to have to figure all this stuff out on their own. I mean, and a lot of people they're not going to geek out about labs, and get excited about looking at other people's stuff. I mean, I understand that that's a little bit of a weird thing for not being a doctor. I do love it. But, here's the other thing I want to share for the general public that's listening right now, is that health coaches have a unique ability to understand where you are emotionally, mentally, and physically, because most of them have been down a road just like you're on right now. So if you're on a health journey, you've got autoimmunity, you've got hormone problems, you're like, oh my God, nobody understands. I can promise you that 99% of the health coaches out there have been on a journey similar to theirs. And that's how they landed in the understanding of how powerful labs can be for somebody to give them back their power, right? To ease their anxiety about that. And the anxiety that is around labs sometimes comes from going to the doctor to get them done. Because when you go to the doctor, they don't have time to sit there and be all kind and nice about, well, maybe this is going to show us a little bit of this. They're like, you need this, and this. And next thing you know, you walk out and you're like, now I have to go to the phlebotomist and get blood. Oh my gosh. Like, it can just create a whole lot of panic that's unnecessary, in my opinion. Of course, I hate needles anyway, but that's my thing.
That's true. And the other thing too is that it's okay to actually pay attention to your health and to actually make it a priority. I mean, if you think about all the things that we make a priority, we look at our phones every 5 seconds during the day. We're happy to go spend money on all this crazy stuff. But when it comes to our health, it just seems like people don't really appreciate it until they're not feeling well. We don't have to be that way. We can be very proactive, and we can take steps to learn more about health. Even if you never were to order a blood test through our site, I would be super happy if I just inspired you to actually learn more about the test and about what your doctor is telling you. And this happened even to me. I went and saw my doctor a few years ago, and he wrote, everything's fine, don't worry about anything. and I was like, can I have a copy of my blood work? Because he didn't explain any of it to me. And I'm a doctor, I figured, I should look at the stuff. And I looked at it, and there were multiple areas that needed to be optimized. I mean, I didn't need to be on medications, but there were a lot of things I knew naturally that I could do to optimize my blood work. And from then on out, I said, yeah, you know what, I'm going to be monitoring a lot of this stuff myself, and I'm going to pay more attention to it. I'm going to learn more about it, because it's not, reference range means you're taking in the unhealthy population too. What you really want to do is get down to optimal. And so by trying to teach people what optimal is and natural ways to get to optimal, that's how we can really, stave off all this early problem of stroke and heart attack and everything that we always sort of worry about. People that pay attention to it and invest time into it, invest effort into it, will just do better. That's just the way it is in everything, right?
Yeah.
Study for a test, you're going to do better on the test. You work out and exercise, you're probably going to run the race faster. There's just, and that's the way it is with our health. And we almost have to train, in your case, your clients, you have to train them that it's okay to put a little bit of effort behind the process. Because if you do, I promise you, your outcome is going to be good.
Yeah, 100%. We've got questions, and I just want to tell, we're literally about to get a major, some storm or something. That's why I look like I'm in a dark cave right now. Like this, it just got so dark in here and it started thundering. So just FYI, that's what's going on my end. But let's go ahead and look at some questions here, get some questions answered. Let's see here. Do you know anything about what's coming in New York? Is anything ever going to change about New York? I mean, come on, the current state of where it's at, I doubt it. But Jane is asking, do you find out about those things ahead of time?
Yeah, actually, New York, we have no control, obviously, over what these states do. I mean, it's the legislatures that make these rules. And I do not have high hope that New York or New Jersey will open up, anytime soon. I would hope they would do it, but, I have no control. I have no inside information. If you're from New York and you're discouraged, I don't blame you. It'd be great to offer it there. We're discouraged. We can't offer it there. They used to do it. Direct Labs used to do some of the stuff there, and they got fined $3 million. And Quest got fined, I think it was Quest. No, it was LabCorp. LabCorp was working direct access there, and I think they were fined $30 million.
Oh my God.
So no one wants to do business there because it will literally ruin your business, And so that's kind of how it is with these places. I wish we could do that. Some of these things I can answer if you want me to, Carmen, because I can see them. So for men, somebody's asking, are there any tests you recommend for men? Family history of prostate cancer? Yeah, we do offer PSAs. Particularly if you're a man, what we like to look for is andropause. So as you're getting older, we like to look at this, slowing down of your testosterone levels. So if I go to the popular lab panels here, I'm just going to show you what a lot of guys will want to look at. Let's see if I can find it here. So the testosterone replacement package is not really about just testosterone replacement. It's about whether or not you're actually low in your testosterone. And so some of the biomarkers included in this would be looking at not only your total testosterone, but if you'll listen to my videos on this, you'll learn that bioavailable testosterone is really what we pay attention to. Because if your total testosterone is good, like mine is, but your bioavailable is low, that's no good. And by the way, my bioavailable is low. And I would have never known that had I actually looked into the bioavailable. It's actually what your body can use. And then men, I don't know if you knew this, but men actually produce estradiol too. And the more belly fat you have, the more likely you are to have a higher estrogen level. So literally as your belly gets bigger, you become more feminized. Okay, you start crying during the Netflix now, I guess. And then you can measure your PSA, and we like for men to, if they're actually taking testosterone, to measure the complete blood count too, because what we're looking is the Lance Armstrong effect. Okay, so as you take testosterone, your red blood cell count increases. And if it increases too much, it can put you at risk for developing blood clots. We like to know exactly what that red blood cell count is. So for men, these are the typical things that we recommend checking. If you're just not feeling quite yourself and you're anywhere close to 50, we start to see testosterone levels decline. And it just gets worse as they get older. And you don't have to feel bad anymore. You can get this easily fixed and remedied. There's some natural things that you can start doing. And then, of course, there's testosterone replacement. There's Clomid, which we give to women to get them, to get pregnant. We now give it to men. to boost the signaling capacity of their brain to produce more testosterone. And then for a man, you can sometimes just knock off that belly fat. And if you knock off the belly fat, you'll stop that conversion from the estradiol, from the testosterone into estradiol. So your belly fat produces an enzyme called 5' aromatase that literally takes your testosterone and it converts it into estrogen. So your testicles are doing great. They're producing testosterone all day long, but then your belly fat's taking the testosterone and making you more like a woman, right?
Yep.
So anyway, so this is kind of some of the stuff I recommend for men. Some other people are asking about other cancer biomarkers, CEA. We do have that available. It's not actually not offered on our website, but if you email us at support@yourlabwork.com, we're able to do that for you. Some people are asking about Canada. We get a ton of questions about Canada. Wish we could do in Canada, but again, we can't. They don't offer us contracts in Canada, so we can't do Canada. Some people, we've tried to cancel their order because somehow they ended up getting in our system. We're not even sure how, when we found out they're from Canada, but they're like, oh, no, we're going to drive across at some point. Again, this is pre-COVID, before the borders were shut down. But there's some people that live on the border that don't mind driving across and getting testing done. But we don't have any control over that. We don't have any international contracts. Okay, so somebody's asking about when you receive iron infusions, how long they'll see the changes in blood work. Well, it can occur. I usually recommend that people wait about 6 weeks in between interventions to get checked. At the soonest, whether it's cholesterol, or maybe you're following autoimmune problems, or maybe we put you on thyroid medicine, we're checking to see the effectiveness of it. 6 weeks would be my minimum time, but I usually like to do it 3 months. I don't like to have blood work done super close together. I like to at least wait 3 months, and I always try to enroll my patients into saying, hey, just give me the 3 things you're going to do really good for 3 months. Okay, and that's all we're going to commit to, and we're going to see the changes that it makes. And it does make changes, and people get excited, and then we build on that. And for some people, that may not be practical because maybe they don't want to meet with you that frequently, or maybe they don't want blood work that frequently. And it could be just every 6 months or every year. In my practice, I would tend to do a very comprehensive blood panel. And we have that on here. It's called the Transformation Panel. I can show you. It's our biggest panel.
Someone asked about that price earlier, so that'd be great.
Yeah, and we actually just had this on sale for $14.99 for the whole thing, and I think it's I want to say it's $17.50. Oh, here it is. Can you see my screen? I got all the stuff in front of it. Okay, yeah. So normally this thing is $17.49, right? It went on sale this past week. It was $14.99, and with it, we gave people the functional medicine cheat sheets that I developed, which basically gives you the cheat sheet of what every lab test is, a little description of it, and then what optimal levels, not the reference range, where optimal, where you need to be, and then most importantly, all the natural things you can do to improve that particular lab test. But our complete anti-aging panel is our most comprehensive one. It has over 60 different tests. We just added the ANA test to it, by the way, which is an anti-nuclear antigen test, which looks more for like autoimmune issues, lupus and some rare autoimmune things. We thought we'd sort of add that. It's our most complete test. So does
it have the staining? Do you use the staining process on the ANA?
Yeah, so it has a reflex, and so what they do is they check for the ANA, whether it's positive, negative, and then they go through. If it is positive, then they do a reflex where they do a much more complete evaluation of it. So for most people, you hope that you're not going to be positive for it, but if you're being positive, it goes a little bit more into it, and it doesn't cost anything more. But we added that because we thought there's probably a lot of people out there who would like to know about that. And we do take your feedback, by the way. If you see things on there, why don't you add this or that? It's usually because we can't get a contract for it. We try to be very responsive to the community, and particularly to health coaches, because they've heard a lot of different things, and sometimes the tests just aren't offered to them easily. So we've tried to make it happen. I think we've done a pretty good job with the functional medicine tests on that. But this is the most comprehensive thing. And then I always tell people, if you get this once a year, we don't need to be retesting everything. Let's just focus in on the areas that we're gonna work on, and then we'll retest those every 6 months or so, or even every 3 months, depending on how bad the situation is. but you want to be able to give people victories. And that's why I really try to encourage people to focus on making things easy, something they can be consistent with. So for me, it's always three things.
Right.
Okay, you want me to read a couple more of these here?
Yeah, go ahead and run as much as fast as you can go through the rest, and we'll wrap up because we're after the hour, and then I'll tell everybody what's coming.
Okay, yeah. So, so an anonymous attendee, okay, sounds interesting, said, I had a client had a 12 on her vitamin D. Her cholesterol is pretty good. Triglycerides were a bit elevated. I discussed cleaning up her gut since her D was so low. Would you do a leaky gut test to be the next step? Would you do, or she lives in Illinois and says she gets outside in the sun but isn't taking any D. So you'll find out that vitamin D deficiency, which is less than 30, super common. 70% of people have it. The reference range on it, the safety range on it is very good. So it's anywhere from 30 to 100, very, very safe. Once you get above 150, people tend to get too much calcium because the vitamin D helps absorb calcium and they develop hypercalcemia, which is not so good. But that safety range is a super wide range. Most people are less than 30. In this case, she's 12, which is terrible. Research shows that levels above 60 is where you get the most benefits. Okay, everything I talked about, the lower blood pressure, less seizures, less psychiatric illness, by the way, if you get above 60, less autoimmune disease. So all these benefits for vitamin D tend to occur above 60. So this person, in my estimation, should be put on supplements. There's no way she's going to get there unless she wants, to develop some melanoma or some basal cell carcinoma like me, especially out here in this Florida sun. Like this Florida sun beats you down. Anyway, the idea is that, yeah, somebody like that, the optimal number is 60. And again, it'll take her a long time to get there. So you should take supplements and then check back in, 6 weeks. No, I mean, you're going to wait at least 6 months or so. Vitamin D takes a long time until you get close to where you need to be. And then what's the dosing for it and all that kind of stuff. Most time over the counter, it comes in international units. So it's, 1 to 2,000 international units. I use much more for people, like 5,000 international units a day. I like to do it chewable, so I don't have to worry about any gut problems they have. If they want to spend, their money and do all these extra tests, they can. But what I try to do is I want to break it down and find out, where is that pain point with that person? Is it just getting and feeling better? Because we know that D is associated with a lot of really great things if you can get it high enough. So for her, I would probably just focus on getting her D up there by encouraging her, hey, this looks like a supplement that, would get you in the optimal range if you just decide to take it every day. But you're going to have to take it every day, probably for a good 6 to 9 months before you even get close to where we need you to be, which is above 60.
Right. Yeah. And there's a sublingual drop by Thorne, which has vitamin D and K2. That's one of my main recommendations because it's just a couple drops of oil. My son uses it. I use it. So it's bioavailable immediately under the tongue, sublingually. So that's also another good option for people who have leaky gut issues, and it's very affordable and it lasts for a long time. And I've used it for years, and I have watched my vitamin D levels go up, from that product. So, and I just want to throw this out as a health coach too, is that I always recommend 2 tests a year for vitamin D as you're heading into winter and as you're, as you're heading out of winter, I would say, because if you're going in and you've got a 12, you need to supplement, but as you're going into the summer, you don't want to be taking the same amount as you would in the winter, because you're heading into summer where your arms and legs will be exposed to the sun. So you don't want to continue taking 10,000 IUs, as you're moving into summertime, if you're going to be living at the pool, right? So those are the two. That's the one test that I usually recommend for a twice a year kind of thing. Just keep your finger on the pulse of it.
Yep. Okay. Yep. And then the last thing here, Grazi is asking a couple things. And that is, I'm a Maryland resident, but close to DC, close to Virginia. Is it okay if I go across state line and get one of these tests? Is it legal? And the truth is, it is. It's where the blood work is actually drawn is the issue. And so within these particular states, DC, Virginia, well, DC is not a state, at least yet, but DC and Virginia, you can get blood work done in either one of those. I responded about your CEA question. You can always email us if you don't see a lab test. We happen to offer CEA. And then the last one, does your food test check the whole foods or the peptides? What the food sensitivity testing is actually testing is your immunoglobulins. So these are your immune response proteins to the foods. And it looks to see if you have a small immune response or you have a severe immune response. And on the report, it's very easy to read. It'll say severe or it'll say mild. It'll be red or it'll be green. So it's pretty easy. If you're working with someone and they're convinced that they have some type of food sensitivity, and they get one of these food sensitivity tests, they can eliminate those particular foods from their diet and see if it makes a difference in how they're feeling. This is a very controversial, thing, food sensitivity. There's, conventional American Allergy and Immunology doesn't think it's helpful. A lot of integrative doctors think it's very helpful for people that have, the tendency towards autoimmune problems. So say a woman who has a thyroid disorder and she has positive antibodies, she's somebody who may want to do food sensitivity testing and look at eliminating these foods and trying to go that route, and try to avoid being on lifelong thyroid medicine. I always recommend, by the way, I always recommend early intervention with thyroid problems, because even if we have to put you on a little bit of medicine for a little while, doesn't mean you stay on it forever. It gives us time to kind of get everything else fixed and get you feeling well, so you don't keep gaining weight, get more depressed, or whatever the symptoms are that you're having. So it's okay to, in the case of the thyroid, it's good, take care of the thyroid while we try to figure out how we can reverse the thyroid problem or optimize the thyroid function.
Yeah. And we're going to do, that's one of the topics that I'm going to bring you in on. We're going to do some thyroid education, and, the follow-up to that is going to be, an e-guide that I wrote. That's 60+ pages for the layman, through my health coaches, that they're going to be able to support people with thyroid problems. It's one of the top things that we see as health coaches. Even if people don't know that's a problem, they come in with all the symptoms and then we say, have you had your thyroid checked? And it ultimately will come back with something wrong, right? And so I always like to tell people, your thyroid is not the problem. It's the messenger. You have to find the problem that's causing, the thyroid to tell you the message that it's telling you, which is something's wrong here. We're slowing down for a reason. You need to go after that reason and find out. And, as a person who loves to investigate these complex chronic problems, I love it. I love to unravel a mystery. We're really good at that. Health coaches are really good at doing that. And I just want to say this, it's not conventional and functional doctors against health coaches. It's conventional and functional health doctors with health coaches that, provide this triage of care for people. So it's not one or the other. It's very important to understand that we all have a place in the health and wellness space. And we want to honor the doctors that are out there, like Dr. Allen, doing the work and providing us with this information. But we also want to provide that support for people in a way that feels good to them. So there's such a great relationship if we allow it, right? I mean, I wish you and I could teach everybody how to work together, to be able to spread the word on how to help people even more, right? Which is what we're doing today.
Yeah, I think if you use the term health advocate, doctors are much less reactive to that. Because if you're going to advocate for someone, they know they're going to have to spend more time with that person, answer questions that are well thought out, and give that person, a little bit more energy and time, and that's a good thing. So I would always encourage that conversation to be, hey, I'm a health advocate for this person, and that lets a doctor know that you're enrolled in that person getting better, and you're there to do whatever you can to help, carry that journey forward. And if you don't have a positive interaction with the doctor, then as an advocate, you can recommend maybe you ought to go to somebody else who probably cares,
Right. Go ahead.
I was going to say I saw a couple of questions pop up. Somebody has a toddler. They were talking about getting food sensitivity testing. So at our site, we don't do anybody less than 18, and that's more of a legal thing than anything else for various states. And so you have to be above the age of 18. I've made an exception on a few occasions where, the person was in Texas and they were in a situation they just needed it. They absolutely had to have it. I would personally take that on, but in general, we don't do anybody under the age of 18 for medical legal reasons. And then somebody else was asking about vitamin D. They went from 34 to 97, and they have a history of kidney stones. And that's okay. You'll just absorb a little bit more calcium. If your urologist sees that, the person taking care of you for your kidney stones, they're going to freak out. And I'm going to tell you to stop taking vitamin D. So you might be a person who would be more comfortable around, say, 60 than you would around 100 where you're at. I mean, 97 is getting up there. So I think I would probably lower that vitamin D intake that you have by, a little bit, or every other day or something like that, and get you down closer to 60.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for all your time. As always, we always seem to go over because there's so much to talk about. But April the 7th, you guys, I'm bringing Dr. Ellen back, and we're going to talk about, we're going to be in your arena on this one, because this is, I feel, in keeping with the theme of proactivity, right? Understanding. I'm probably going to go into the top 3 things. You might come up with more than that, that land people in the ER, and what can we do before that actually happens? I want to keep people out of the doctor's offices, the hospitals, the ERs as much as possible right now, because too many crazy things are happening sometimes once they get past the door. I mean, I've seen it all here lately with the world we're living in, from kidnapping grandma to not letting somebody out unless they have a test. I mean, it's just nuts. So the goal is to not go there in the first place. So that's going to be the topic we're going to talk about in April. But I also, I'm just going to keep bringing you back as often as you'll come, because we have so many topics and you give us such a great explanation in such an easy to understand way. I will have to tell you that you're one of the people I get the most compliments about. When we finish a webinar, ultimately always text, email, Facebook message. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. He explains things in a way I can understand. And that's the goal here today, is helping people understand things in a way that doesn't feel scary to them. So thanks again for, coming to us and being here. I really appreciate it, as always.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and thanks for your kind words.
Always. Tell your wife to give me a call when she gets a break from the beach. And we've been playing phone tag, but tell her I'm interested in having a conversation with her. And we will talk to you soon. So everybody, watch for your replay. I will be sending you the health coach link to find a health coach in your area, or where you can even work remotely. The link for your lab work, if you're interested in becoming an affiliate or looking at that page, is in the chat, you guys. So grab it, but it will also be in your replay. Give us 24, 48 hours to send that out. And as always, everyone, take care of yourselves and the people that you love. And we will see you at our next Wednesday event.
Can I say one thing that's really important?
Yes.
When you sign up to be an affiliate, make sure that you put Carmen as the person referring you. Okay. So it's super helpful, because Carmen gets the best of everything. Just know that, like, we have better communicate. You just understand Carmen is great. So we try to work very closely with her. So there'll be a play like, were you referred by somebody, who is your parent? It's always going to be Carmen Hunter. Okay. So that's just what I would recommend you guys do. Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, talk soon. Thanks everybody. Bye. Thank you, Dr. Allen.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.